going to start the presentation and say a few introductory things, and then I'm going to hand over to my colleague, Mathieu. It is an initial study of a very exciting musical genre, which is children's songs. And it is very exciting because music plays a fundamental role in children's lives. Okay, children socialize with each other, they play, they reveal their emotions, and they do all sorts of things with music, and their musical interactions can be surprisingly rich and interesting. It's interesting that children were historically described as immature human beings of an early evolutionary stage. And it's only on the second half of the 20th century that research got more interested in children as individuals, and they studied quite a lot cultural aspects of their lives. And musicality was one of them from a cultural point of view. And that means that today children are not viewed as musical amateurs who are waiting to become musical experts, but they're musical experts in their own musical culture, and they have their own rules and functions and norms, which can be sophisticated and rigorous. So in this framework, it is well established that the notion of song it plays a fundamental role in this musical culture, and it affects children's educational and performance practices. These songs can be simple in form and content. Usually they share some common melodic characteristics, and this is a reason why we decided to look at this genre. And these characteristics are based on primal music fundamentals. So, for example, the child's voice is constrained, gestures, motions used during games, and so on. However, research on children's music has largely focused on social, cultural, and educational perspectives, and the actual analysis of the music itself has not been done very much. We believe that music analysis is fundamental, and we can highlight particularities and interesting aspects of this corpus and help understand better children's musical nature. So what we've done here is we collected a small corpus of 110 songs from 7 different European nations. We decided to look at melodic contour as one of the very fundamental musical features in this type of music. And we will propose a set of melodic contour representations. And then we look for distinctive patterns that distinguish the corpus, the songs of each of these nations or countries. And our preliminary results, because this is still a preliminary study, show that that perhaps these representations are appropriate in order to reveal distinctive patterns and similarities between the songs of the different countries. So the corpus, as I said, is 110 songs. It's from Catalonia, England, France, Greece, Spain, Sweden, and Turkey. We asked native speakers to suggest songs to us. Emilia was one of our native speakers. And we decided to take the oldest and more typical songs. Now, if a song was appeared in more than one country, we decided to take it out, like Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, for example, we did not consider. And something which is important to say is that we did not differentiate between songs made by children and songs for children. This is an important distinction that we hope to take into account in the future. We re-encoded the songs into MIDI, and we segmented the songs according to the lyrics, simply like that. And that resulted on 505 musical segments. Okay. So contour representations, of course, there are various different contour representations. Melodic contour has been studied from various perspectives: music analysis, composition, semiotics, cognition, mathematical music theory, and informatics from many of you here. And quite often we see that we use a very simple representation of plus, minus, and zero to denote the direction of the melody from one note to the next. On the other hand, we have a more abstract representation, so like, for example, Huron's melodic shapes. It's a very interesting and elegant representations. We have, using the multiple viewpoint formalism, we can have many different levels of abstraction in the contour representation, and we're going to show some of these, like note the contour change only when there is a new contour value, or thread the pitch contour at specific points, so only take some notes into account, like the first note of a bar, first of phrase, and so on. We can have continuous functions. Peter has done some work with melodic contour and various people here. We thought of looking for a good compromise between expressivity and simplicity, and we wondered whether contour on a reduced score might make sense for our particular purpose. Yeah.
Thank you, Christina. So for this first study on contour, we wanted to test a contour on a reduced score. And the idea that is very simple is just to take into account the strong beats. So yesterday we discussed on problems when we go to score, because for oral music it's not always a good idea to go to score to notation. Of course we know that taking some scores, taking some MIDI files, we can have some bias inside. But anyway, in this corpus, the children's songs are relatively simple, with simple melodies, and often we can agree with the rhythm and with the meter, and we can say that the notes of the contour that are on strong beats should be important notes. For example, here is a Greek song, Panos Tenkonia, and there are the two first segments of the songs, and if I take the first segment, da 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 da, of course the important notes, da 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 da, and the other notes are some passing tones, and perhaps should be discarded if we just want to keep the interesting notes. So at the bottom you have the full contour with 0 plus plus 0 plus minus minus minus. And the top line, the strong contour, we just kept the note and the strong beats. So here, perhaps we don't add so much information because the full contour is very in accordance to the strong contour. But more interesting, the second segment, where there is some neighbor tones, and you see that there is a motion here that will be discarded by the strong contour. So, of course, this motion is interesting and should be studied if you study the ornamentation, or if you study specific gestures in the song. But if you want to have a high-level view of this segment, perhaps you can just say, it's something that goes down, up, and down. We also tried some weak contour. A weak contour is just you take a full contour and you add in parentheses the notes where there is a change of contour. But we won't present results with the weak contour today because it's still very preliminary. So just for reference, at the bottom we put the Huron's contour on these two segments. So the first one is the famous convex contour, something that goes up and down. And the second one is always descending. Remember that Huron's contour, just you take the first note, the average pitch of the middle notes and the last note, and you just see the contour on these reduced scores. Okay, now the results. So for Huron strong and full contour, so for Huron you have only 9 different contours. If you take the full contours, you have plenty of different contours, of course, because you can have contours with many different symbols. So, of course, the number of occurrences, if you take the most frequent full contours, it's only 6. So it's very few, and it's very difficult to have some real statistics or to infer some conclusion. If you take the Huron contour, as there is only 9 classes, of course, you can draw some conclusion, and the first conclusion is coherent with all the work that was done before, that the most prominent contour is this convex contour that is here found, this 72 segments in a corpus. So you have for each, and in the middle, excuse me, you have the result for the strong contour. So the strong contour, someone is in between the Eurons contour and the full contour, where you have only 92 different contours, and some contours are found more than 10 times, so we can say some things on that. So the last column on each table shows the number of currents by country. Sweden, England, France, Catalonia, Spain, Greece, and Turkey. And we want to go further because, of course, we can analyze the most frequent patterns, but we want to go further to say, are these patterns distinctive for some country, for some nation? So for this, we take a definition by Darrell of what is a distinctive pattern. So a pattern is distinctive if you find more relatively in a corpus than in an anti-corpus. So here we know we have a relatively small corpus, but anyway we can take, for example, songs of Turkey as a corpus and take the songs of all other countries as another corpus, as the anti-corpus. We compute, it's not the real probability, but the observed probability in the corpus and in the anti-corpus. We do the ratio, and we use a certain threshold just to look for distinctive patterns. So the results, here the constraint is I want to have patterns that are twice overrepresented in a country nation than in other country nations, and that have at least 10 occurrences. So, in fact, with this contrast, we found zero distinctive patterns in Eurons contour and in full contour. But in strong contours, here, we have some values, some patterns that are very, very distinctive. We will show some of them. So, of course, we can say things on Eurons and on full contours. I put some figures in bold that some contours that are interesting. But when you go to strong contours, the patterns are really, really distinctive, because it's perhaps a good compromise between something that is very precise and something that is more abstract. So, some example. This contour minus is more than 5 times overrepresented in songs from Turkey. So you find here in 9% of the segments, but usually a song has several segments, 4 or 6. So you find really between 1/3 and the half of the Turkish songs. So, and in the rest of the corpus, it's just less than 3% of the segments. So it's a cadential contour. You find it often at the end of the phrase, but anyway you can find at other places. So of course further work has to be done to know if this contour can be linked to specific properties of the Turkish language or the Turkish intonations. Other example of contour, this one is overrepresented in France, and it's a contour that, so here it's examples that are not in French, it's French example, and here there are of course other examples. So this one, something that goes down, up, and down. And yes, again, we have to see if it can be linked to some linguistic feature or some musical feature of French songs. And another one, this one was distinctive for Spanish songs, with the criterion we set. But what is very interesting is that the second most prominent country is Catalonia. So we see similarity, and again, we have to see if it's something that is more related to these cultures. Okay.
Okay, I can say a few more things about the results. We had a small corpus, so our results are still very tentative. Interestingly, the southern countries had more distinctive patterns. Now, I don't know what this says about the northern countries, but for example, we didn't find any distinctive patterns for England, and only one weak contour pattern for Sweden. Okay, a question that might arise is whether this strong contour representation is an appropriate representation for this corpus. We think it is because we found some patterns and we And they're using this reduced type of score, we captured similarities that could not have been captured otherwise. So you saw some examples before of different contour patterns. And we believe that it's a good compromise between a very abstract representation, such as Giraud's melodic shapes, and the full detailed representations. We expected bigger differences between strong and weak contour patterns, but we didn't get that many on that. An interesting thing was that all strong distinctive patterns end on a minus, apart from one, so there is always a descending motion in the melodies at the end of the phrase. And even in the phrases that ended on a plus, we saw that quite often the score could have been reduced further. There was a consonant skip upwards or something like that, and that's why the phrase actually ended on a plus and not on a minus. Further, if the phrase ended on a plus, we saw that the following phrase was a downward motion. So we saw that downward motions were quite important for this corpus. In general, the songs had very short melodic lines, short phrases, and that's why our patterns are also so short. We had a lot of repetitions, circularities, symmetries in this type of songs, and it's possible because the music needs to be learned easily, and it needs to enhance the singing, playing, and moving, and so on. So that's why we have these simple melodies. Lots of planned future work. First of all, we're interested to see children's songs as a musical genre on its own, but in order to look for regularities in all the songs of all the countries, we need to compare it with another corpus, and perhaps adult folk music could be one. We also need to distinguish between categories of children's songs, so songs made for children, songs made by children, lullabies, and so on. So there is a whole big world in there. And we're interested to see which contour shapes come in which position in the song. So for example, we saw that in Turkish music the down motion came quite often at the beginning of the song, and this was not shared with other countries. Or what I said before, if a phrase ended on a plus, it was followed by a phrase going down. We want to see segmental patterns, so patterns made out of contour shapes, so what follows what. And we need to look at other musical features. Of course, this is just a study, initial study on melodic contour. It would be interesting to see what other features we can take. But we believe that music analysis is a very good starting point for this type of study in order to see what are the characteristics of children's music as a musical genre. So we got ourselves out of it, but we need to get back in. Thank you.
It's Anneke, I hope, yes. Thank you very much for your very interesting presentation. I think there is already one question.
We expected that.
I have several questions. First, what are the global characteristics of the likelihood ratios you're observing here? I mean, just what's the distribution of your...
the most distinctive pattern is more than 5 times. Yeah. We kept only more than twice because you have many patterns that are between 1 and 1.5, but it's not really distinctive. I mean, it's just we take at least twice overrepresented, but we know that it's really not a strong threshold. That's how we have to look really at the patterns.
So related to this and related to the last talk we heard, if you could have a hierarchy of regions or a hierarchy of countries,
yes,
this might boost your likelihood ratios.
Yes,
and you might get more frequent patterns.
Yes. But here we did not compute also the error levels, and I mean okay, we know if it's 5 times, it's okay, it's distinctive, but we have to do more statistics to confirm that.
And finally, not a question, just a suggestion. I mean, I really like what you've done with these different contour representations. You could imagine searching over a whole bunch of different representations and finding those that give you
yes, we can iterate on the viewpoints with your iterator, with your you use 28 viewpoints and just find the best one. Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Okay, one moment.
Hi, thank you for a nice talk. I was wondering about reduction of the contours, like when wood was done, and also if you can say something about ambiguity that may arise by doing that.
It was, we saw that in this type of music, the reduction would make sense in that we didn't have that many suspensions, for example, so the important notes all happened on the main beats. So, apart from some consonant skips that we noticed a few times, the rest was pretty clear. We also took the anacrusis as part of the strong contour. And our rules were pretty clear on how to take the strong contour, so we didn't face any ambiguity, but we had some questions about whether this type of representation would be the appropriate one.
If I take, for example, this one, plus, plus, minus, of course the three segments are very different, and it's an arc, it's go up and down, but what is more interesting compared to the arc, and if you sing the three segments, you really feel that the melody is going upwards 2 times. So we know there is ambiguities, but it's somehow it's the goal of such representation to summarize things.
Two more questions. First one is for Eva Dan.
As a short comment, from the Polish perspective, I confirm that there may be a huge difference between children's songs sung by children and sung for children. So this certainly has to be taken into account. But since you have mentioned yourself that the samples are small, I'm not sure if you ever came across ESA as an associative coder, the old code which was used in some countries to encode large corpora. In ESAC system, there is a big collection of German Kinderlieder, so children's songs, and also in Poland we use this system. You actually don't need to use old ESAC if you don't know it, but we have the data, and David Huron wrote the conversion into Hamdrum toolkit. So it's
okay,
very
nice.
useful.
Okay, nice.
Two more questions. I think we can handle that. I have 2 microphones, but those are the last 2.
Okay, my question is, as you said, your corpus is limited, and you have some songs which are composed by not sung by children or whatever. So how about field work? I mean, when you describe that as a culture, and you consider it as that, there should be the point that field work can be done there, and I can imagine it's fun. So, but did anybody do that? So.
There are many websites online, many collections of children's songs, but we don't know how they got these songs. I don't know if it was fieldwork, but of course fieldwork would be very exciting work for us.
Hello. I have a musicological question, and it's about the segmentation. You said that you looked at the lyrics, but if I just look at these examples, now you.
Yeah, okay.
You can go back. For me, the first one. Let's start with the second one. That is a sentence. It makes sense and it finishes logically. But the first one,
yes.
It stops in the middle for me. So I would say that's a wrong segmentation, or I would segment the second one in 2 parts.
Yeah.
And then you have a totally different contour. So segmentation is.
You are right. The segmentation is very important and can be a source of many errors. We know because so we did the segmentation. After we made this segmentation checked by native speakers, and typically the first one, if I remember correctly, is the one of if you just look on the music, you put the segmentation not here because it's not you are not tonic, it's in the middle or something. But you have some, based on the lyric, you have some native speakers say, okay, the segmentation could be here. And there is many cases where it's very difficult to see what is a good grain of segmentation. I mean, here in this song, we can say, okay, I have a phrase here, I have here a sub-phrase, and you have to know, we decided to segment at the finest possible level. So we have this file with 110 songs that is segmented, and we can share with you, no problem. And of course, it has to be corrected, and it's you know that it's a difficult problem. It's what is this file could be a ground truth, but what is a ground truth for segmentation algorithm and so on. So I prefer to see that as a multi-level segmentation, and you have to choose what is the good level, and it's very difficult to have a consistent choice across the corpus.
We had even disagreements about it while we were segmenting. So.
Okay, as a final remark, I just heard a rumor that has actually been done fieldwork in Belgium about children's songs. But well, maybe we need to follow up on that later. So thank you again for a very great presentation.